There's this really crazy misconception that we can't ask for help. Using your voice and asking for help is one of the most important things that you can do. There is help all around you. I have to bring this up, but then I have to tilt this down. Home fit check. You always see my toilet and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like because so many of us were in these mainstream forms of education, we were taught that we can't ask for help. Think about when you had to take a quiz or a test. You couldn't ask for help. And if you could ask for help, they would just say something like, read the question again, or remember what you did for homework. That's so not what real life is about. Some artists are able to very easily shake this misconception that we can't ask for help and use our voices as many different ways, especially those who use our voices in our art. Think about the singer-songwriters, the actors, those who are already using our voice might be more comfortable asking for help, but I also think this just goes for everyone. I just think that we were taught that asking for help is not allowed. On these big pivotal moments that make or break our career, we're not allowed to ask for help. I just think that is silly. I genuinely do not know what my life would be if I was not an asshole. I wish that I could say that I coined this term, but I did not. I don't know who coined it, but I heard it from Jack Canfield, so maybe he coined it. He says in so many of his books, just ask, 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 be an asshole. It's a pretty simple definition of being an asshole. It means knowing when and how to ask for help because our artistic journey takes a village. And this again goes back to this concept that why are we in school taking tests and quizzes, not only not being allowed to ask for help, but also not doing it with other people. It makes no sense to me. So many parts of being a human being, a person in the workplace, an artist, is collaborating. I don't know, maybe that's a whole other episode on how I feel about the education system, but let's just leave it at that. The thing about being an asshole is it does take this vulnerability. And if you're an artist watching this, I bet that you already are familiar with being vulnerable. There needs to be a sense of vulnerability in order to actually create art, to share it with the world. I remember when I started writing music and I was like, oh my gosh, the thoughts that I'm thinking are then written on a page. I'm gonna share it with people and people are gonna hear what I'm thinking. Even like sharing my lyrics with Static for the first time. Like we've been together for 6 years. You would think there's no problem that I'm sharing him these really vulnerable lyrics, but it still is. Many of you probably have some sense of needing to be vulnerable inside the studio, whether you're a songwriter, painter, whether you have a studio or not. The studio is really just a concept of when you're working on your art. But then understand that there needs to be vulnerability outside of that too, in asking the people around you for help. Because the truth is, people actually love being asked for help. I think there is this implicit fear, again, I think it might come from school, where if we have a question about a test, I can just think about certain teachers, this groan of like, why don't you understand it? Why are you asking questions? And the thing is, people are actually the complete opposite when you ask them for help. The majority of people genuinely would be so honored to answer that question. There's so many different reasons why asking for help is obviously helpful for you, but it is also really helpful for them too. This is about expertise validation. You going to someone and saying that you admire something that they're doing and asking them how they do it reminds them, oh my gosh, yeah, like I did work hard to do this. I should be confident in what I'm doing. That's really helpful for them. There's a sense of altruism to it too. For the majority of people, the feeling of helping other people is a good feeling. I'm saying the majority, obviously I don't want to generalize. There's some people who don't want to help other people, but I'm just gonna assume you're around kind people. People like helping other people. Not everyone necessarily is gonna help someone by volunteering in a soup kitchen. Sometimes people's help is giving other people advice and just sitting them down and talking about their experience. It's also just like really nostalgic when you ask someone about something that they did that they really loved or an experience where they succeeded in something. Even in college, like I wouldn't say that I succeeded per se. I made a lot of mistakes. I definitely did not get like cast in all the shows, but when people talk to me about what should I do if I'm applying to college, or I love talking about it because I just remember that I got through that. Just the fact that I was able to master that part of my life and I have some experience over someone else that I can help them with and make their journey that much easier makes me so happy. The person that you'd be asking for help, I bet would also feel the same way. It also gives them a sense of self-reflection. Just looking back on this moment and saying, again, wow, yeah, I did work really hard on this. I think as creatives, we are constantly shooting for the next goal, and we're constantly excited for what's to come and what's our next big move and project. But being able to go back and kind of saying, there are several projects that I've completed successfully that I should remember and be excited about. That is a really amazing experience that you can give someone. And then it's a sense of status and respect. Somebody coming to me and asking me about anything, even when I answer some of the comments and you guys are asking me about all of these things that I know I'm not an expert in many things, and I wouldn't even say I'm an expert in this, but just when I get questions, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's people who are benefiting from this. There are just so many reasons why it's so helpful to ask people for help, and why I genuinely do not think that I would be where I am today if I didn't. I honestly probably wouldn't be with Static right now if I didn't, because we met in a production of Hair. Hair is about just a bunch of hippies in the 60s, and I was playing one of those hippies, and he was music directing, and he was also playing the bass. And I am genuinely just the type of person that whenever I pursue something new, I want to just ask the expertise of all the people around me. I'm just so curious what their life path is. When they get really excellent at something, I want to know how they got so good at it and what they love. If they have any feedback for me as a collaborator, that's how we honestly started talking. He actually made me a playlist on the song that I was singing, and I was asking him for some feedback after he gave it to me, like, oh, did that sound better? What do you think about it? Like, I genuinely just love getting feedback, and I love asking for help. I think that that's opened so many doors for me. It's literally not because I'm like talented. It's not because I spent money to go to college. It's not because I went to acting school. Genuinely, just whatever stage of life you're in, asking for help is free. But first, I do want to differentiate the difference between asking for help and asking for free work, because there is a difference, right? Asking somebody for help is genuinely asking about what their journey is, like a service on both ends. There's almost a give and take, because they're getting fulfillment out of sharing something with you, sharing their process, reminiscing on this past experience they had, remembering that they worked really hard to get here. Asking for free work is a little bit more specific, and that's like asking someone to do something for free for you where it could be paid. So let's just really break down the differences between these. And it's pretty simple. Asking for free work is asking about someone's specific tasks or deliverables, whereas asking for help is more guidance and advice and insight. I just sense a difference when someone's genuinely asking me in the comments. I am so happy to talk about that, because I don't know, I love reminiscing on my process, but I've had people not on YouTube, but just separately in like other situations be like, can you give me like a step-by-step of like how to start a blog and how to do this? And at that point, I think some of it's just more of an energy where I'm like, you're asking me specifically the process of what I do. That would require like a whole course. Like that would require one-on-one coaching sessions and a lot of stuff that I don't really enjoy doing that much. This also includes, can you apply to a job for me? Can you start my Etsy shop for me? Or can you write a bio for me? Like that's all, you're asking for free work. I think you can understand the difference, right? I just wanted to make that clear if it wasn't clear already. And I think you know that. Asking for free work, it's complex, it's time consuming, it's deep thinking. Asking for help, it's lighthearted and it's more of a bird's eye view perspective. So it goes more into this. If you're asking someone, tell me your step-by-step process of how you prepare for a role, or tell me your process of how you start painting. That is a very sacred process. Asking for help is more of that bird's eye view, lighthearted. Can you tell me, if I were to want to be in your shoes, what would you do? At this point in my life, what are some things I should be thinking about? So hopefully you understand the difference, is that the asking for free work is actually asking for, can you do something for me? Can you give me a step-by-step guide? Asking for help is bird's eye view, like what was the best way to go about getting started with this? How did you get started? Asking them questions about their experience and their perspective on something, and then using your brain to then relate it to yourself. You're gonna have to do some work in this too. You're not asking someone to give you the answer to something. If you know that you're not asking them for deliverables or for them to do something for you or to like literally break down the entire process, then you're in the clear, right? And if somebody says no, then that might be more on them than on you. That's okay. That's what we have to do when we read the room, because we can't read people's minds. And I want to emphasize this a lot because I come from a background of wanting to please everyone. And if somebody's not happy, then it's my fault, right? No, it's not. Read the room when this is happening because we can't read people's minds. Use your best judgment and know that you actually don't really know what they're thinking. And it's their responsibility to tell you if they don't want to answer a question or if they don't want to offer you help. Just basic understandings. If they have this enthusiastic, detailed responses, you can tell that they really love what they're talking about. Two things you can listen to as well, if they're redirecting to like, I do one-on-one coaching, there's gonna be a limit of the amount of help they could probably give you. Some people genuinely could just talk about their work for hours, and I think that's where this whole like mentorship thing comes in. I'm just thinking of that Seinfeld episode, like, what's a mentor? If they're outwardly talking about, well, you know, I do this paid service, I do one-on-one coaching, where I will get more into detail about that, then you know that they offer this as a service probably because they love doing it, so much so that they want to make it a job, and that's great. That just means that there's probably a limit to the amount of questions you can ask them and help you can ask them before you'll just want to maybe join one of their programs, or if you can't afford it right now, find some free alternatives. And then listen about their workload too. I mean, some people have a lot of time to talk about things like this. Some people who are in this like mentor-mentee relationship, they will set aside time to have mentees and talk about these sorts of things. They might be retired, or they might just love doing it on top of teaching or something else, and they might not want to monetize it. They might just love doing it. Again, if they mention paid services, if they say, you know, I don't have too much time to talk about it because I do something else, understand that, and that's totally fine. That's just part of it sometimes. Let's break down the two different ways that we can ask for help. Asking for free help and asking for paid help. If we can't afford a one-on-one coach or coaching program or paying someone, then we can look to things like friends or friends of friends who are in the situation that you want to be in. Whether that's a friend of a friend who works in television, like, oh, you know, would they be willing to talk if I took them out for coffee and just asked them about their experience? And remember, it is up to other people to say no. I think that's a good way of doing it too, is offering to take them out for food or dinner, or you're paying them so they can help you a little bit. Think about the people in your lives who, you know, your friends have talked about, who are in this industry, who've maybe offered like, oh, I have a friend who's in that. I would love to connect you guys. That is a great opportunity. I know that there are so many artists out there who you don't feel like you have a community, but just really think about it, because I guarantee there's someone, at least one person in your life, who is an inch closer to what you want to do than you are. Then again, teachers or mentors. If you're in college, teachers really love talking about the journey and what to do after college. They have office hours specifically for people who come to them and ask them questions. Usually it's about the topics that they're teaching. If you're in a theater school or an art school or whatever art school you're in, I am sure there's at least one teacher there who would just love for you to ask them, like, I want to do this in my life. Have you gone through any other students who have done this? What did they do? What was their first step? They love talking about that. And then mentors, I'm not super familiar with them. I genuinely just have friends in the industry that I'll text and be like, what should I do in this scenario? But if you do find somebody who is a mentor, usually they're a little bit older and they're either maybe not working in the industry anymore or just so far up in it that they have plenty of time to talk about what they do because they're doing what they love. That's a great way to ask for free help. And then ask people in your community, like people who you might not even know. This could be friends of friends, or this could literally be posting in your local Facebook community and asking, hey, is there anybody here who owns a art gallery? I'd love to connect with them. Or, hey, I just graduated from this college and I would love to connect with some other artists. That is a great way of asking for help. Sometimes help comes from the same level as you are. Sometimes having a community and just expanding and having more people in your circle actually is a sense of help. When you're able to talk about your process to someone who understands it, you're able to get out. Alone, we tend to have analysis paralysis. When we have friends, we tend to get to the point a little bit more and say, oh, that's why I'm thinking that. And maybe they can understand why you might be stuck or why you might be confused. This could literally be going downtown in your community, going to a theater show, and then connecting with the director after and saying, this was such a great show. What is the rest of your season like? How do I get involved? Just things like that. It could be strangers who you could just become part of your circle. Then there's some paid ways of asking for help. If you have the budget, if you're looking to take it a little bit more, I don't want to say seriously because I know you're taking this seriously, but if you want more of a strategy, usually paying for one-on-one coaching or anything like this helps you get there faster. I'm not saying that you have to pay for something in order to achieve your dreams. At some point, we are gonna have to invest in a business for it to invest back in ourselves. We are the business. That's how businesses work. But I would never recommend going into debt just because you feel like you need to spend money. But if you do have the resources and the budget, things like courses, one-on-one coaching, group programs, and retreats can all be really good ways to focus very much on one singular part of your artistry in a way that you're basically paying for this help. You're paying for these connections, you're paying for the experience, and you're paying to learn something faster. Think about college. In 4 years, you get a degree, and I'm not saying that you wouldn't have learned that stuff in the real world. You might just not have learned it fast enough before you want to get a job. You could go through YouTube videos. You could find, did I mention YouTube videos in that first? I mean, YouTube videos is another free way of doing it. You could go to the YouTube videos. It's probably just not going to be packaged in a way and have a lot of accountability like something paid. The sheer fact that I pay for something makes me take it a lot more seriously. Like, I'm paying to get my branding done right now, and I'm gonna use the heck out of that branding because I paid good money for it, and I'm gonna make sure I milk it to all it's worth. Spending $1 on something is kind of like, okay, I'll give or take it, whatever. But spending like a couple hundred, maybe a couple $1,000s on something, not saying you should do this if you don't have the money, but doing that could then hold you a lot more accountable and kind of give you that energy to really just hit the ground running. I have friends who, they go on business retreats and they join courses, and it's like things just happen faster. They get back and they're so inspired, and they're like, I know my strategy, I'm gonna do it. And they're super inspired. And that's an amazing way of asking for help. That's paying for help. By the way, if you're loving this video, would love for you to give it a thumbs up and maybe even subscribe. Wild thought, I know, crazy. I wish something like this helped me when I was in college and when I was younger. If you wanna subscribe, I would love that so much. Bringing it back, right back to Jack Canfield. I just can't help myself, I love him so much, but he has this great mantra of no next. If you do ask for help from someone and they say, no, I'm not available, or I'm not free, or next. Just next. Ask the next person, find the next one. If you are looking at a course and it's a little too expensive and your budget says no, next, look for something else. If you can't afford the course but you know you want to in the future, look for something that can hold its place until you can afford it. Or look for that next opportunity that can maybe get you some money so you can afford it. There's always another option. No is just next. I'm a people pleaser, and if someone says no to me, I'm like, oh my God, it's my fault. I literally ruin everything. But I just want you to remember that if somebody says that they can't help you, then there is gonna be someone out there that can offer help. Of course, this door is closed. There's gonna be something else. You're just gonna have to look for that next. Part of asking for help, when you understand the difference between asking for help and asking free work, is understanding the art of asking questions. You wanna definitely show them why you wanna ask them for help, and you wanna prepare them. I think about like those like MLM girls who are kind of just like, oh my gosh, I have this amazing opportunity with you. I'd love to get coffee. And then you get coffee and they're just like, okay, so if you want to join my downline, and you're just like, no. We don't want them to not understand why you'd be asking them for coffee. It's not like you wouldn't be friends at all, but it's just being really clear with that ask. I would always start with a compliment, a genuine compliment, because there's a reason why you admire them. You find something complimentary about them, share that. I'm so inspired by how you do XYZ. I think it's so cool that you were able to do this. It's even weird for me to say to start with a compliment because it should be so genuine. That is the first thing you want to say to them. If you're asking someone for help, you obviously think very highly of them. So I would say just voice that. Voice why you would want to ask them for help. I wouldn't even say think of a compliment, because if you're thinking of a compliment, this is coming from the wrong angle. This should genuinely be, why do you want to ask them for help? I always start out with that. I really think it's so inspiring what you've done with your business. I think it's so cool that you're able to have an Etsy shop full time. I really admire your studio space, and I've been looking to build one myself, and I just don't really know where to start. I'd love to buy you dinner, buy you lunch, by coffee. I would love to ask you some questions about your process. There's so many facets of your life that I think are so admirable. Really leaning into what about them makes you really inspired? What about them makes you feel like, wow, that I want to be a part of my life. I want my life to be more like that. I get a lot of cold emails from people from a bunch of different reasons, not because I'm anything special, just I'm on the internet, I guess. People will say, hello, we are an agency and we think that your social media numbers could be better. I always think that's the weirdest approach of getting business from someone, like basically criticizing their social media and being like, it could be so much better. Some people that work so well. For other people, like me, I will answer an email if they show me that they've been watching or listening something and something specifically touched them. Hey, I came across your YouTube channel and I really loved what you said about XYZ. What did you mean by this? I'm much more willing to answer that question. I will save those emails more when they compliment me, not because I feel like I need the compliment, but because I know that they're listening and they're just not sending this out to mass people. There are people out there who are gonna ask every single person under the sun, oh, can I take you out for coffee? Can I take you out for coffee? I want help. They're just looking for free help. By you showing how they make you feel, it's going to be a difference because they might have other people asking a lot of them. They might have had people try to ask for free work from them, and that could be, maybe traumatizing isn't the right word, but that could feel really weird and that could feel like being used almost. So I just want you to think about if someone were to be asking you for help, how would you want to hear it? I would always want to hear just that they that they hear me, that they liked, there's something about my song lyrics that hit them, or there's something about my YouTube video or my blog that they really resonated with, because then I know I'm being listened to. So if we have a conversation, it's not just going to be a one-sided thing, that it would actually be a conversation. No one wants to be in a conversation where they're doing all the talking and the person's like writing things down. You want to be in a collaboration. I've talked this whole time about asking for help in your artistic career when it comes to somebody being in a life situation that you admire and you want to have more of, but I also want to talk about asking for help beyond your artistic career. This is things like, the biggest thing I can think of is therapy. Therapy is the best thing ever. You have to have a good therapist. I've literally searched for 4 years for a good therapist, and now I finally have such an amazing therapist and I love her so much. Therapy is, I feel like, the biggest example of asking for help, and genuinely you will become a better artist when you have a therapist. You better understand yourself. Asking for help, this is as simple as asking for recommendations to locally. We're looking at buying a house. I asked our friend, who is your real estate agent? And they recommended one, and then I talked to them about, oh, who's your loan guy? And then they recommended me a guy. Like I ask for help on every single situation. We tend to see these really big goals. Let's say having 100,000 followers on Instagram. We see these goals and we're like, oh, how did this person do this all by themselves? Genuinely, very few people did. A lot of people ask for help. So I might look super official. I might look like I'm putting this all together, and yes, I'm doing the editing and I'm doing a lot of things, but I'm getting help from a lot of people. I'm getting help from a branding specialist, graphic designer. I'm getting help from a Pinterest manager next month. We have a financial advisor. I have a therapist. We have an entire team behind us. Because you are an artist, this is your business, you have a team behind you. They don't all have to work full time for you in order for you to have a team. I want you to remember that nobody gets here on their own. All of these solo artists, they have a team behind them. I've been listening to commentary recently about like musicians and talking about like Sabrina Carpenter's album, and they always say, oh yeah, Sabrina Carpenter, she started doing this thing and she started doing this thing with her hair and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, girl, she has got a whole team behind you. Why are we not saying Sabrina Carpenter's team? And I think she would equally say that. Whenever artists get an award, they're thanking so many people. These are people who have helped them get to where they are. Even when people talk about artists adding auto-tune to their voices, it's likely not the artist, it's likely the producer. There's likely other people who are doing that. So I just want you to remember that while it looks like on the outside we're all doing things ourselves, I'm alone right now, I'm in a room talking to you, I have a team of people helping me constantly because I ask for it. And I want to invite you to ask for help. See the community around you, see every single opportunity you have, and remember that can help you in your creative career. You are not doing it alone. You should not do it alone. Can you challenge yourself to ask for help one time within the next week? And let me know in the comments who you're gonna ask for help from. In the meantime, stay inspired, stay creative, and I will see you next time. Bye.